Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 3 running back start or sit decisions for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be talking about every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way until Monday Night Football, and I will be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit every running back in each and every single matchup. But before we get on into the deep dive at the running back position, I would like to ask if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out this content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to ask that if you guys have a Twitter and would like to follow me on there, I tweet all about the NFL breaking news and how it relates to fantasy football. I answer questions on there as well, just like I answer the questions down below in the comment section. You can follow me on Twitter at NotoriousFNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the description. So without further ado, let's get into it. We begin with an electrifying Thursday Night Football matchup between the Panthers and the Houston Texans, and it is in reality the exact opposite of an electrifying matchup. We have Sam Darnold versus Davis Mills. So with the Carolina Panthers at the running back position, you're obviously going to be starting Christian McCaffrey. There are a couple of players at every single position that are basically matchup proof, that it doesn't fucking matter which defense this team is facing, that the player is just going to dominate, and that is exactly the case with Christian McCaffrey. Now, I'm not saying that the Houston Texans are some great defense that's even tough, that Christian McCaffrey would even struggle with, but the sentiment is still there. Regardless of what defense Christian McCaffrey is going up against, you're going to start him every single week here up against the Texans. Shouldn't be all that hard of a matchup. In week number 1, the Texans defense looked really good, but maybe that's just because the Jaguars offense looked really bad. And then in week number 2, the Texans defense went back down to earth up against the Cleveland Browns, and I expect them to be just about all right up against the Panthers, so McCaffrey should be in for a big game. For the Houston Texans, we are kind of in a scenario where it is just very confusing to figure out which running back to start, and your best bet is probably just to sit all of them. Mark Ingram, Phillip Lindsay, as well as David Johnson are all going to be sits for me this week. If I had to guess which one would perform the best, I would probably say Mark Ingram, because he seems like the number 1 back on the team, but it seems like the touchdowns are split so evenly between this group, this trifecta of running backs, that it's best to just kind of avoid them every single week unless you are in a tremendously bad situation. Next up, we begin the Sunday slate with the Indianapolis Colts at the Tennessee Titans. In this game, you're going to be starting Jonathan Taylor as well as Derrick Henry. So Jonathan Taylor last week shit the bed in a big way in that game. I thought the Colts were going to be just fine up against the LA Rams. Sure, the Rams defense is really good, but Jonathan Taylor got a lot of opportunities to score. He gets in the end zone, they call it back. Jonathan Taylor has a bad day overall, but this week he gets the Tennessee Titans, and even if Carson Wentz doesn't end up playing, which is my assumption at this point, I don't know how they expect this guy to play with 2 ankles that are just messed up, so I don't know how he's going to play. So Jonathan Taylor will be a big focal point of this offense, trying to run the ball to eliminate Jacob Eason from making any of these mistakes. The best way to do that is just running the rock aggressively, and I expect them to do that in this game, while Jonathan Taylor's ceiling may be kind of down this week, because without Carson Wentz, maybe they won't be able to put up as many points, but maybe on the other hand, they start running the ball a lot more, and that helps out Jonathan Taylor. So I think Jonathan Taylor has a relatively solid game this week. He's definitely a start for me. Derrick Henry starts off the season in week number 1 atrocious, and then in week number 2, he basically took any potential doubt that you could have had in Derrick Henry, and he just threw it out the window. Up against the Seattle Seahawks, this man went to Pound Town. I'm pretty sure he scored over 40 points in all formats, that being standard, PPR, as well as half PPR in that game up against the Seattle Seahawks. I expect Derrick Henry to continue onto the role that he was on last week up against the Indianapolis Colts, whose defense doesn't seem as good as I thought they were going to be this season. I'm going to be sitting down Nyheim Hines as well as Marlon Mack. Nyheim Hines seems to be kind of a risky start this week up against the Titans. While I don't even think the Titans have all that great of a defense, far from that, but I still am just not going to be trusting in Nyheim Hines this week. Same thing goes with Marlon Mack, who just doesn't seem to have all that much involvement in this offense, which would make sense because Jonathan Taylor is so good and Nyheim Hines takes away a lot of that pass catching role. Next up, we have a matchup between the Atlanta Falcons Falcons and the New York Football Giants. Now, right now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, you know what, Nick? I saw Saquon Barkley have that one big run last week up against the Washington football team. This week, he gets the Atlanta Falcons, so I think I should start him. And I understand that argument, but if I'm being completely honest with you guys, which is what I try to do in all of these videos, I just feel as though I cannot trust Saquon Barkley. This Atlanta Falcons defense is soft as baby shit, so it's entirely possible that Saquon Barkley could have a big game with the reduced workload that he is given, because I still believe that he is going to be on that snap count with that reduced workload, which is just not going to bode well for Saquon Barkley having a potential big game up against a cupcake defense in the Atlanta Falcons. Now, if he has a big game this week, then it's okay, because I would rather sit Saquon Barkley and him have this big game over starting him and him still getting like 10, 11, 12 carries in a game, maybe even less than that, and him completely jeopardizing your week at the running back position. So I'm sitting down Saquon Barkley again this week, depending on who else you have at the running back position. If you have Saquon Barkley, let me know down below in the comments section who are some of the running backs on your team, and if you're willing to start Saquon Barkley or not over those players, because right now, I am still very worried about Saquon Barkley. I think a lot of people are dismissive of this because he had that big run last week, but besides that big run, he barely did anything up against the Washington football team, and Joe Judge has not came out and said that, hey, the kind of handcuffs are off, the restriction is off of Saquon Barkley. When he says that, or when we see it, that, hey, they're giving him the rock correctly, then I'm perfectly fine playing Saquon Barkley week in and week out. But right now, based upon what we know, I'm sitting him down. Same thing goes with Devontae Booker, because unless Saquon Barkley was just out of the game, not playing at all, not getting any snaps, then Devontae Booker is basically irrelevant. For the Falcons, Mike Davis as well as Cordarrelle Patterson are going to be sits in this matchup. Cordarrelle Patterson may be listed as a wide receiver on the website you play on, depending on which format. I don't think Cordarrelle Patterson is all that bad of a start, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Mike Davis had a bigger game. This offense is just as confusing as it gets in Atlanta. Next up, we have the LA Chargers at the Kansas City Chiefs. When it comes to the Chiefs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire absolutely cost them the game a couple of days ago up against the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football. And maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't the running back that everyone made him out to be, that running back that has top 12 potential in fantasy football, but at least you didn't draft him there. You didn't draft him in the first round. In a lot of scenarios, you didn't even have to draft him inside of the second round, unless it was the later second round. So where you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, sure, you may not be happy with his performance thus far because he hasn't been all that good, but I would still tell you that in most scenarios, you should still be starting Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Here, going up against Justin Herbert, the pervert, and the LA Chargers, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire could have a bounce-back game. There's always the potential that Andy Reid just feeds this guy the ball because he realizes that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is still a talented running back, and maybe they want to give him more chances, that they don't just put him in a body bag by just completely siphoning the targets away from him, siphoning the rushes away from him, and giving them to, say, Darrell Williams. A coach that does that is Mr. Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay, where, hey, you make one minute mistake, you're riding the bench, this other guy's going in, then the other guy makes a mistake, and then another running back is going in. That's not how the Kansas City Chiefs run the offense here, so I believe that Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be fine this week, but again, the upside is limited by the fact that maybe he's just not that good. For the Chargers, I'm firing up Austin Eckler up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Last week, we all were clamoring for a high-scoring game between the Dallas Cowboys and the LA Chargers. Basically, everyone assumed that Dak, as well as Justin Herbert, the pervert, were to have these huge weeks. And that is basically the complete opposite of what actually ended up happening on Sunday. Both of the teams didn't look bad, but they didn't look as good as I expected. I think that Austin Eckler is a perfectly fine running back start week in and week out. Here up against the Chiefs, we just have to predict a high-scoring matchup, even if it didn't go that way for the Chargers last week. I'm going to be sitting down Justin Jackson. Basically, any running back behind Austin Eckler is going to be rendered useless unless Austin Eckler was to get hurt. Darrell Williams for the Chiefs, unless Clyde Edwards-Helaire really starts to stink it up, unless Andy Reid just has the end of it. Unless he's just tired of watching Clyde Edwards-Helaire do this, then Darrell Williams really doesn't have that much value either. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here I'm firing up Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has looked relatively solid through the first 2 weeks of the season. This is far from a cupcake matchup, though, up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't expect Joe Mixon to struggle so much to where you wouldn't want to start him, but I definitely wouldn't tell you guys that he's probably going to likely finish inside of the top 12 at the running back position this week. The Steelers defense is relatively solid, so Joe Mixon, he's definitely a start this week, but don't expect a top 12 or a top 5 finish on the week from Mixon. For the Steelers, I'm going to go ahead and fire up Najee Harris. Najee Harris is a beast. In week number 1, this guy gets completely shut down by the Buffalo Bills, and panic starts to ensue. People start to get really, really nervous about Najee Harris. I told you guys to calm the fuck down after week number 1. I'm not necessarily trying to be mean or something when I say this, but I'm saying, everyone, calm the fuck down. Everything's going to be fine. Some of these running backs that have the bad game in week 1, they're going to bounce back in week number 2. People were panicking about Aaron Jones. They're panicking about the Packers. Is Aaron Rodgers finished? Is Devontae Adams done for? Is Big Bob Tunyon screwed? They were saying the same thing about Zeke, saying the same thing about Najee Harris. There were a bunch of players that ended up putting up terrible games in week number 1, and people started to panic. Najee Harris was one of those. Like I said, up against the Bills, he didn't look good, but we saw promise because he was the only running back given carries in that game. He's the clear workhorse running back in Pittsburgh, so going into the week, in week number 2 up against the Raiders, I expected a big game out of Harris, and he played quite well in that matchup. I expect him to play very strongly up against a bad Cincinnati Bengals defense. I will be sitting down Mr. Samaje Perine, because unless Mixon is hurt, it seems like Samaje Perine or any of the other running backs behind him will not have any relevance. And I didn't even bother including the running backs behind Najee Harris because, like I said, this guy has such a big stranglehold over this backfield. But before we get into the next game, I'd like to ask if you have ended up enjoying thus far to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. Back into it, we got the Bears, the Chicago Bears, going up against the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. In this game, you're firing up every single starting running back. For the Browns, I like Nick Chubb as well as Kareem Hunt. The basis of the Cleveland Browns offense is just to run the ball aggressively down the throat of the defense. 9-inch Nicholas Chubb is deep-throating that defense, not with his penis, but with his play on the football field. I believe Nick Chubb is going to have a big game here up against the Chi-Town Bears. Kareem Hunt, while Kareem Hunt never necessarily has that upside to be a top 10, a top 5 running back, he is a very reliable guy to play week in and week out. He's almost like at the running back 2 position, like you're throwing a condom on there, because Kareem Hunt, while he will never have that big game, like I said, it is entirely possible that one of these weeks he busts off a huge game because he's playing up against a not so hot defense. But up against a defense like the Bears, I don't expect him to have this elite week at the running back position, but I also don't expect him to completely fail me, to screw my team over. He's a very safe option, a very reliable option, week in and week out. So we could basically call him the Trojan man, Kareem Hunt. So for the Bears, I like David Montgomery. Now, David Montgomery looked excellent up against the LA Rams. If you guys remembered, he had that really big run to begin the game up against the Rams, had a solid game. Then in week number 2, didn't look as good last week up against the Bengals, but again, he is still the lead dog in Chicago. I think with Justin Fields under center, maybe it isn't this week where things start to look much better for the offense, but I think eventually, once Justin Fields catches on, he catches fire, he gets that momentum, then this offense is going to be much better. But don't be surprised if Matt Nagy's ass ends up just benching Justin Fields, even if Justin Fields is on fire, and putting Andy Dalton back in the game. Andy Dalton seems like a really nice guy. If you guys watched the, I don't know what it was on Twitter, it was like the mic'd up of the game, and Andy Dalton's cheering on Justin Fields. It makes you feel really good for the guy Andy Dalton is. While he may not be the best quarterback on the field, he's a great support system for Mr. Justin Fields. I hope Justin Fields and Andy Dalton the best. Hopefully, though, Justin Fields is the starter for the rest of the season, because for fantasy, that would help out David Montgomery a ton. And I'm going to be sitting down Damian Williams, backup running back of the Chicago Bears. Next up, we got the Ravens at the Detroit Lions. For the Ravens, it seems like Tyson Williams is the lead dog, the lead back in Baltimore. Now, does that mean that Latavius Murray doesn't have the opportunity to score a tug in this game up against the Detroit Lions? No, but I just feel like by far and away, Tyson Williams is the guy in Baltimore. This is a team that just runs the ball so effectively game in and game out. Here up against the Lions, we just saw Aaron Jones take them to pound town. He pounded that defense into submission. I'm pretty sure he scored not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 fucking touchdowns in that game. Do I think Tyson Williams is going to do that? Probably not, right? Because Lamar Jackson is bound to mosey his way on into the end zone to throw the ball into the end zone. They're not just going to run every single time, but I expect Tyson Williams to have a big game here up against a not so hot Lions defense. As a whole, they're really not that good up against the run either. For the Lions, DeAndre Swift in week number 1, I'm worried about DeAndre Swift. I'm talking about how, hey, Jamal Williams is going to be involved, and hey, this offense may not be so good. And in week number 1, that was blatantly wrong because they played super well later on in the game up against the San Francisco 49ers to have DeAndre Swift have a good game. But then in week number 2, going up against the Green Bay Packers, DeAndre Swift fucking sucked. He sucked. He screwed me over out of a prop bet. That motherfucker couldn't get 6 more rushing yards, but that's okay. That's not why I'm mad at him. I'm more mad because this scenario is just so confusing. Because I understand that DeAndre Swift is a very talented running back, but a lot of the reason why I was kind of fading him in the offseason during these fantasy drafts was because I worried about the fact that maybe the Lions offense isn't that good. Maybe the defense is so bad, which is true, and they're not able to run the ball, and DeAndre Swift's value inherently comes from the dump-offs in that scenario, and that's what it seems like it's going to be here up against the Ravens. Would I sit DeAndre Swift? No, but I am definitely cautious about him not having all that great of a week here up against the Ravens, who look like they have a relatively solid run defense. I mean, they really shut down Clyde Edwards-Helaire last week, but then again, DeAndre Swift's definitely better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. For the Ravens, like I said, I will be sitting down Latavius Murray, but I wouldn't be surprised if he scored a touchdown in this game, and Jamal Williams seems like a sit as well here up against a tough Ravens defense. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints at the New England Patriots. For the Patriots, I'm going to be starting both Damian Harris as well as James White. Damian Harris, that run up against the Jets last week, if you guys didn't see it, because you know, who the fuck was watching the Jets play up against the Patriots last week? Damian Harris ran a train on the Jets. I swear, maybe 7 guys tried to tackle him. There was at least 7 guys there trying to grab him, and he ran through them all. It was like Beast Quake when Marshawn Lynch ran the ball, and there's that video of that guy commentating. He's like, Darren Sharper, hold my dick. You know what I'm talking about? The Beast Quake run. That's basically what that was, but for Damian Harris. Maybe not as impressive, obviously, but it was still sick. I just figured I'd let you guys know about that because I didn't see it posted too much, and that was definitely the best highlight or one of the best highlights of the weekend. The best one was definitely probably Lamar doing the cartwheel or like the flip into the end zone. That was pretty sick as well. But Damian Harris going up against the Saints. The Saints are very confusing. Week 1, they look like this lockdown defense against the Packers. They look like this unstoppable force. And then the next week up against the Panthers and Mono Man Sam Darnold, they look terrible. What will happen here? I assume they have a bounce back game. So Alvin Kamara is clearly a start this week up against the Patriots. Again, Damian Harris is a start. He's a very reliable, a very safe option week in and week out. And James White, his value really comes from the PPR and half PPR leagues because he is such heavily reliant on the receiving game. But even in a standard league, I would think about starting him this week because I think this will be a solid game for both of these backs up against the Saints. And I will be sitting down Mr. Tony Jones, backup running back of the New Orleans Saints, because unless Kamara was to go down, you're never really going to be wanting to start the backup running back with just how involved Alvin Kamara is in this offense. Next up, we got the Arizona Cardinals at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Urban Meyer genuinely deserves to be fucking thrown out of town, to be run out of town, to be destroyed. I fucking cannot stand Urban Meyer, and this is coming from someone that's a Dolphins fan. I don't give a fuck about the Jaguars in reality, but this guy has completely screwed over James Robinson. Give James Robinson the ball. And last week I said, hey, start James Robinson. Maybe Urban Meyer isn't that much of an idiot. Maybe Urban Meyer will figure it out. And it's very clear, it's very blatant that this motherfucker needs to go to USC or whatever college job that is open, UCLA, whatever it was. Get out of here, go to California, go be the coach of them, and let the Jaguars just be the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence looks like complete and utter donkey cock. James Robinson looks terrible because they're not giving him the ball. Carlos Hyde, for some reason, still receiving usage. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. If you have James Robinson, unless someone's going to give you the king's ransom for James Robinson, you probably just have to hold him at this point. That would be my lean. I think things could turn around if Urban Meyer just watches the film or actually just listens to anyone in the media who is saying, you know what, give the ball to James Robinson. I understand that the Jaguars weren't a winning team last year. I understand that they were a complete and utter dumpster fire, but the way they moved the ball was by giving the rock to James Robinson. So please, Urban Meyer, turn this fucking video on. Listen to what I'm saying. Give the ball to James Robinson. It's probably not going to happen, right? Because he hates me, but it is what it is. Sit James Robinson. This is a tough matchup up against the Cardinals defensively, realistically, but you could still run on them, but, you know, Urban Meyer's too stupid to do that. So Chase Edmonds, he's a smash matchup here up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He appears to be the lead dog in Arizona, which will make me sit down Mr. James Conner, even though this is a solid matchup for James Conner. Next up, we have the Washington football team at the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. For Washington, people are going to start to get a little bit, they're going to try to get a little cute in this game, right? They're going to fire up J.D. McKissic, and I will tell you right now, would I be surprised if McKissic had a big game up against the Buffalo Bills? No, I would not at all, because the Buffalo Bills defense maybe isn't as good as a lot of people are making it out to be. But on the same token, J.D. McKissic got a lot of usage last week. But at week number 1, the guy was like Houdini. He was irrelevant. He was not there. He disappeared. That's why I said Houdini. So, J.D. McKissic, what will it be this week? Will it be balls deep J.D. McKissic like last week, getting touches on the goal line, scoring a touchdown, getting these receptions? Or will it be like week 1, where he's invisible, John Cena, you can't see me type of deal? Which one is it going to be? I have no fucking idea. So I don't want to come on here and tell you to start J.D. McKissic, because I wouldn't be surprised if he had like 3 points in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe it's not a complete and utter change from last week. Maybe he doesn't get 0 usage, but maybe he's more in the middle. Maybe he's getting less usage than week number 2, but more usage where he was not used at all in week number 1. So maybe he's sitting in the middle there, and I just do not trust J.D. McKissic in this matchup at all. So I will be firing up Antonio Gibson of the Washington football team for the Bills. I don't know what to think about this running back core either. It seems like last week up against the Dolphins, they both looked very good, but this week they get the Washington football team, whose defense will actually be trying throughout the whole game, because the Dolphins defense, as a Dolphins fan, it seemed like they just gave up in the second half. They realized Jacoby Brissett wasn't going to be able to get this done. They realized they were done in the game. It was over. Finale, fin, whatever the hell you want to say for the end of the game. It was over. Finito. So they just let them run a train on us. I don't expect them to play that well up against the Washington football team front. Next up, we got the Jumbo Jets at the Denver Broncos. Now, I am going to tell you to start both Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, but I am about as unconfident as it gets, because this is a smash matchup. The Jets defense sucks ass up against the run. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams could form an Eiffel Tower over the Jets defense and just pound them out. But at the same time, they both get so much usage to where it's a 50-50 split, to where maybe none of them have fantasy football value. That's the worst thing about this Broncos offense, is that if Melvin Gordon wasn't there, Williams would be amazing. If Williams wasn't there, Melvin Gordon would be amazing. But instead, you have the two of them there, and that screws each other over. It kind of siphons the value from one and doesn't really help the other one at the exact same time. They're both probably going to have like 10 points in this game, 12 points in this game, but at the same exact idea, the Jets defense is so bad. They're so bad to where both these guys could get 20 points. But again, I am still a little bit nervous. So to me, they are starts, but they're kind of bottom of the barrel starts this week. I'm sitting down all the Jets, the Jumbo Jets. Tevin Coleman, Michael Carter, as well as Ty Johnson. Carter looked good last week. Maybe it's going to become Carter season like I believed it was going to be all off season. Shout out to Lil Wayne. Maybe it is Michael Carter's time. Will it be this week? I don't know, but I think eventually he will take that lead role. But right now, I'm sitting all of them down. Next up, we got my Dolphins going up against the Las Vegas. Turn your volume down. Raiders on Sunday. This is a game that I don't want to watch, but I'll watch it. Don't worry, guys. I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm going to watch this game. I'm going to watch every game, and I will cry a little bit because Jacoby Brissett's going to be the starting quarterback. Tua Tagovailoa is out. People call him Tua turn of the ball over. You know, that's kind of funny, right? And to me, it's not. He doesn't really turn the ball over. It's more like Tua get hurt over and over. That was the funniest one that I read, but, tough scene for Tua. I hope you're okay, good sir. I love you. I hope that you are back next week or something. It seems like it's going to be for a while, though, with the fractured ribs. Could take like up to 7 weeks. Like, man, oh man, the Kenyon Drake seems like he's going to be the lead dog here with Josh Jacobs potentially missing again. So I'm starting Drake even up against a tough Dolphins defense. I'm sitting down all these Dolphins back. If I had to start one, it would be Myles Gaskin. He could have an all right game, but I just don't expect the Dolphins to move the ball at all with Jacoby Brissett. So we're sitting down Carol Gaskin. We're sitting down Salvin Ahmed, and we're sitting down Mr. Malcolm Brown. Next up, we got the Seattle Seahawks at the Minnesota Vikings. Again, guys, I'd like to ask if you have ended up enjoying, please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. I would appreciate that a ton. Back into it, we got the Seahawks at the Vikings. Chris Carson, Dalvin Cook, they're insta starts. Obviously, Dalvin Cook is dealing with that injury late on in the game. He gets hurt, but then he plays, right? But then he's out, then he's in, then he's out. He's kind of doing a little bit of a dance back there. So hopefully he's healthy. If he is, this is a great matchup up against Seattle. And if he's healthy, then you can't start Alexander Mattison because it's not really like Pollard and Zeke, where it's really that Dalvin Cook is the clear lead back in Minnesota, and Alexander Mattison probably will see virtually no work unless Cook is hobbled. So for Seattle, you're starting up Chris Carson, the backup running back behind him, Rashad Penny. I don't know if he's going to play. Is it going to be Wiki DJ Dallas? Is it going to be Alex Collins? Who cares? Because Carson's the clear lead dog there. He's the alpha running back. He's the workhorse running back. So we're starting Carson up against the Minnesota Vikings. To me, these are kind of no-brainer starts, so there's no real need to dive super deep into these guys. Next up, we got the Buccaneers at the LA Rams. Darrell Henderson, will he play? Will he not play? It appears we will know on Friday if Henderson will be good or not. At least that's what I read. Maybe we'll know later today. Maybe we'll know tomorrow. But if he plays, I'm still fine playing him up against the Buccaneers. But again, that's kind of a bottom-of-the-barrel start. If you have other options, play him. Sony Michel, if you had Darrell Henderson and he gets hurt and you don't have any other running backs, then obviously you're going to have to play Sony Michel, but this is far from an ideal matchup for the running back position. I just think Darrell Henderson is good enough to be all right. But Zeke played really bad up against the Bucs, don't you remember? And Zeke's really good. I know. I just think Darrell Henderson will be fine for some reason. Something's just telling me that he will get enough dump-offs to make the game just about A-okay. For the Buccaneers, I'm sitting all of them. Rojo, Leonard Fournette, Uncle Lenny, Giovanni Bernard. They're all sits. They're all sits. What do you do every week? You're just going to sit here. I'm going to tell you one name. Who's going to be the best this week? I have no idea. I'm going to be honest. I have no idea. My best bet is Ronald Jones every week that he will be the best, but he never ends up being the best. Typically, it's Leonard Fournette. This is a tough matchup up against the Rams front. I don't trust any of these running backs normally, especially this week up against a tough defense. Next up, we got the Green Bay Packers at the San Francisco 49ers. Aaron Jones silencing like they were in a fucking library to the haters, to anyone who believed that Aaron Jones was not worthy of a top 5 pick, to anyone who told me that I was stupid for drafting Aaron Jones over Ezekiel Elliott. He basically told them to go fuck themselves. Now, I understand that you can't victory lap over 2 games of the season. I'm not here to dance on the graves, metaphorically, of people who drafted Ezekiel Elliott over Aaron Jones, because in the offseason, I saw it as a splitting hairs. I saw it as a very close decision. Here, up against the 49ers, Aaron Jones is going to smack them up just like he smacked up the Lions last week. Huge game here out of Aaron Jones is my expectation. For the 49ers, things are dicey. Trey Sermon probably not playing in this game. JaMychal Hasty, week to week, out multiple weeks. Jaquez Patrick, who the fuck is that guy? Likely to be the second string running back. Or maybe they bring in Duke Johnson or something. Or maybe Trenton Fire the Cannons is the second running back. I believe Elijah Mitchell plays. I don't know what they're going to do if Elijah Mitchell doesn't play. So that's why my assumption is that he's going to play. He was hobbled, but he came back into the game last week. So to me, all signs are pointing towards go for Elijah Mitchell, so I will be starting him here up against the Packers, as anytime you can get the lead running back in San Francisco, typically that's going to provide some value, and he should have scored that touchdown last week. I don't understand why they called it back, and finally, we get to Monday Night Football, right? So excited. What game is this going to be? It's another fucking NFC East game. What is the obsession? The NFL getting on their knees. Their knees are all scraped up for sucking off the NFC East. Thursday Night Football last week, Monday Night Football this week. Now, this is actually actually a good game, so it is actually kind of an exciting game, so I'm not as mad, but it's just crazy how much of an obsession they have with the NFC East. Miles Sanders will be a start for me up against a terrible Cowboys defense. To me, that's kind of a no-brainer. Zeke, also a no-brainer up against the Eagles. You play him every week. Tony Pollard. Now, I'm going to list him as a start, but I will not be surprised if this guy completely torches us. We're thinking, oh man, Zeke, is he done in Dallas? Like, is it Tony Pollard season? And then we're going to just fucking play Tony Pollard this week, and he's going to bend us over the table and fuck us relentlessly without even the use of lube. So basically, my assumption here is that Pollard gets enough work to be good up against the Eagles, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he was terrible, so he's kind of a bottom-of-the-barrel start this week, and I'm sitting down old Kenny Gainwell of the Philadelphia Eagles. Thank you guys all so much for watching this video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below. I appreciate it immensely. I love you guys all so much. Have a great rest of your guys' day. We are almost at 18,000 subscribers. I appreciate it a ton. Thank you to all of you guys. You're the reason why we've gotten this far. It ain't me. It's all up to you. So thank you guys for subscribing. If you want to share this with your friends, please do. I would appreciate that a ton. I love you guys. Make sure that you stay safe. And as always, have a great rest of your guys' day. Goodbye.